Hi, welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. My name is Kirk and I'm joined by, in my opinion, one of the best death metal bands in the UK, from Nottingham, specifically veterans of the scene. I have actually called these guys legends in a review for our Screenblast Repeat sister organisation when we did an appraisal of the album. I'm talking about Beyond Grace, and I'm joined by drummer Ed Gorod and bassist and vocalist Andy Walmsley. So welcome to the channel, guys.
Oh, thank you very much. That's a very kind introduction from you. Much appreciated.
Can we just cut the interview there and that'll be really positive? We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and you can just put it on Instagram then. And it's like, everyone loves us. This guy we've never met loves us. He loves our band. Thank you for joining me. The reason I wanted to do this interview, two things. One, love the new EP which came out. Was it December or late November last year?
November, wasn't it?
Yeah. Squeezed in towards the end. So for our viewers, our listeners, Beyond Grace, I've put out one of 3 EPs called Welcome to the New Dark Ages. So part 1 came out in November, and there's going to be 2 more installments, and then all 3 are going to form this album, which is going to take the title Welcome to the New Dark Ages. But you should know what question I'm going to ask first. Why did you leave Prosthetic Records?
Well,
I wouldn't say we left. I have thought long and hard about how to answer this. And I think the diplomatic way of putting it is that despite a positive start, we weren't really what they wanted in the end, and they weren't what we needed. And there was just this, I'd say, a clash of personalities and a bit of that's probably a little bit of miscommunication in there. Like, we still occasionally speak to Becky and Will, who are the PR people behind it, who, both those lovely folks. I think in the end, it was really positive when we first signed. We thought it'd be really good for us, but it was the wrong move, I guess. It's great to see because it made us bigger in that sense, or at least in people's minds. I think people think we are perhaps bigger than we actually are, which is an interesting place to be. But we got vinyl out of it, and we got more exposure. You can't pay your rent exposure, but it does help to get that exposure as a band. I think we were all, to be blunt honest, we were all quite hurt and a little bit bitter when it first went down. But it is a music business, it is a music industry, and it kind of reached a point where clearly we weren't. There was no massive falling out like that, but we weren't doing each other any good. So there was really no point, continuing the relationship. I think that's probably a good summary of it. I don't want to. It's not a he said, she said. I mean, they'd probably tell you basically the same sort of thing, I think. It was gutting, but it led us where we are now, which I think is the best stuff we're doing. So,
Ed, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Andy's more or less said it all. I think at the end of the day, we just weren't getting what we wanted from them, and I don't think they were getting what they wanted from us. And so it was best to just go our separate ways. And as Andy said, it's in some ways, I think it was a blessing in that it's allowed us to do this slightly unusual format with Welcome to New Dark Ages. I don't know if we'd have had the kind of freedom to try doing things differently like that if we'd stuck around there. So, as Andy said, it was, wasn't something we were happy about to kind of have that situation occur, but I don't think it's. I think it's.
I mean, I was going through one of the worst times of my life at the exact time they went, oh, by the way, we're also not happy. It's over. I was like, oh, it was another thing on top of, I'd lost friends, I'd lost family, we had major illnesses in my family, we had every sort of issue you could have, with money and life and work and all sort of stuff in like an 18-month period. And then in the middle of it, the record label went, it's not working out, guys.
Do am I right in thinking, are we probably of a similar age? Are you late 30s, early 40s? Don't be offended by that if you're not wrong side of 40.
Late 30s, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So when we grew up, the expectations in the record industry, you sign a deal, they fund or give you an advance and pay for the studio recording. Clearly that doesn't happen now. And you used to see rock and metal bands getting dropped all the time because a major label would sign a death metal band and stupidly think they're going to sell 5 million copies. But the expectations and arrangements are surely different. So when you signed to Prosthetic Records, was it 2020? Was it during COVID when you signed to them?
Yeah.
What did you go into that part? What were you expecting them to do for you as a service? Because I'm interested in how it works now, the music industry.
Well, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure. Do you want to go ahead? You go first.
Sure. I mean, as you say, like, obviously the industry is not the way it was, 20 years ago or whatever. And I think the main thing we were hoping to get was, I guess, kind of a certain amount of just advice and connections through them. As you say, it's not, record labels don't have money to throw at new bands these days, which is fair enough. So, I mean, they
did give the smaller bands.
Yeah, they did help
in there.
Because
we had just jump in. We had already recorded the album with our own money, and then they gave us their standard advance, which we took and used to do videos mainly because we loved making the videos. It allowed us to sort of plan them out better and get a little bit more. Because we do fund this all ourselves from our own jobs and stuff like that, and we are still doing all the videos. We love making them. They're a great part of adding a visual language to the music. But with that bit of prosthetic advance, that really helped us, plan things better instead of saying, "Oh, we'll do them when we can afford them." We were able to go, "Well, we've got this lump sum of money. We can actually do this at this point and this at this point," without having to, shuffle things around in our accounts.
Yeah. So that was really helpful. And then, as I say, I think the thing we were hoping for more than anything else was just kind of connections and advice and guidance, essentially, on how to kind of try and level up with in terms of not just musical output, but kind of in terms of live shows and in terms of reaching out to new people. And I think we got some of that, but I think we didn't get as much as we had hoped, which is why, as we've kind of already said, when we went our separate ways, although we weren't happy particularly about it, but I think it was the right thing for both parties, clearly. So.
Yeah, well, you could tell. So not long after, very soon after they dropped us, they announced the Undeath tour of the UK that came on. And I have to think that if they'd had more faith in us, they'd have wanted us to be on that tour, because it makes sense to have, bands and labels, and we're obviously the localish band, the local band for this country in that sense on their label, who would fit in. But the fact that we didn't know about it in advance, I think, meant they'd kind of clocked out with us. Because let's face it, when you're running a label, I always try and understand this. You sign a bunch of bands who you like the music and think there's potential for. And then you have to put your, you have to back the winning horse, really. And so they signed a bunch of us. Like they signed Pupil Slicer just before us, and they grabbed the zeitgeist straight away. They'd had like 10 times many views on their videos in the same month we had. It was clear that they were getting the attention, and that's not undeserved. But if you put it in context, well, it's like, yeah, but they've only got so many people in the label, only so much time they can have. So do they back us, who are definitely going to be a slow burn, and we write death metal that's not in any particular clique or trend? It's also about politics, which can be an off-putting thing for people. We don't necessarily fit a mold. Or do you find Pupil Slicer who didn't fit a mold either, but who had suddenly, I think, there's always that, luck is preparation, meeting opportunity. And they were good enough, they got the opportunity and they got big. I think we were good enough, but for us, the cards didn't fall that way. So in some sense, as I've grown less bitter over the years, should have had. I have tried to see it from their perspective in that sense, and you can see why we just weren't the right fit, because they had, I think, other bands filling enough niches that there wasn't really a place for us.
What do they expect when they sign an artist nowadays, a metal label? What goals do they set? Your goals, like, we want you to. I mean, surely you don't get targeted on physical sales, do you? I mean, they need to have something, but
I mean, I'm pretty certain Ed is our honorary treasurer in this band and keeps track of things generally. But I'm pretty certain we definitely like we more than broke even with prosthetic. The amount they gave us, the amount that they got, and so that we worked out sort of roughly a while back. We definitely would have made them their money back. They didn't lose anything on us because we'd already funded it ourselves. They gave us some cash, and we were pretty certain we made them their money back, but we didn't make enough for it to be a viable business concern in that sense. And a roundabout way of saying, getting around to your actual question there, no idea. We didn't really get any objective. You know, that's part of the problem is, I think part of the reason we were a little bit bitter, or I was at least, was we didn't really know. It was a breakup. Like it was a breakup. Instead of it's not you, it's me. It was no, it is you, but we're not going to really tell you why it's you. But again, I just feel
it's interesting that they, as Andy said, there weren't. I mean, it's a good question. What do labels expect from the band? And I feel like that was never particularly clear. And clearly we didn't provide whatever it was they wanted from us. But yes, it was never really made explicit as far as I can see.
Well, don't they have that lead tech death band, Cognizance? Aren't they? Are they on Prosthetic Records?
Nope.
Are they not?
Were they ever on?
Yes, they left the label a couple months after we did.
There you go then, yeah.
Yeah, and they're now on, but they got snapped up by Willowtip recently, which has got our friends in Rannoch on, and the Anchoret, and should really sign us because we'd fit perfectly there. I'm just putting that out there into the universe. But, you know, I think there's been some talk about Prosthetic being a difficult label to work with, just generally. And I don't want to contribute to that because actually working with them, although, again, we weren't a priority, you know, we worked really well with Becky and with Will. It really was a case in the end of this relationship. It was one of those, this relationship just isn't working. And although we were the ones who got dumped, there is that, you know, once you've got a bit of hindsight, you've got to look back and go, actually, yeah, you know, actually this wasn't working. It is very much like a actually relationship, a breakup in that sense, where you go, oh no, it would have ended anyway at some point or another. So you'll benefit hindsight. We've kind of learned from it, I guess, which is why we're doing what we're doing now.
Were there any discussions to lock you into a quantity of albums on a contractual basis, or did you get the impression it was going to be album by album basis? We'll decide if we want to continue.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that when I don't really know how much detail we're supposed to go into.
Yeah, I don't want to get you in trouble, but
we've not signed NDAs or anything. So when we were initially talking to,
can't enforce those anymore anyway.
Yeah, when we were initially talking to them, they sent us kind of first draft of a contract, and it talked about, it was for the album that we currently had already recorded but not released, and then they had the option on the following two. So the idea is, next, once we got a new album written, they would have first dibs on it. If they didn't want to put it out, fine. But, you know, potentially we were locked in for 3 albums. And we kind of said, because we had not worked with a label before, when they first kind of showed us this contract, we were kind of like, well, we've not worked with a label before. We don't know what this is going to be like. We don't know how this is going to go. Would it be possible just to do one album and see what happens? And their response to that was to say, we don't really like doing things like that because we really like investing in smaller bands and really building them up and pushing their profile. And we're not expecting a lot from this first album because you're still, you know, on the global scene a relative of, you know, small fish. But what we really want to do is use this album that you've got to push to build up to the next album. And that'll be the really big thing to take away. And we were like, that's a fantastic answer. That's exactly what we want. Great. That's not what happened.
I do remember them saying, Ed, oh yeah, I mean, it's just the one album, but it's very rare we don't take up the second option.
Yeah. So I think for me, that's why I was a bit kind of
stung.
The thing that that bothered me about the situation was that we'd had this whole discussion where they'd said what they weren't expecting a lot from the first album, and they really wanted to kind of push us in the more long term. And then I didn't feel like we got that support to push us. And
well, again, to not make it a he said, she said, just to I try and play devil's advocate. Things do change in that sense. I mean, I fully agree with Ed. Like I said, that they talked about building it up slowly, and slowly it was a year, almost. I think it was less than a year since the release of the album. They said no, so we were going to do the cover song we did, Here Comes the Flood, which has a video which obviously had our old bass playing when we were 5-piece. That was actually shot, years ago, well before it was actually released, because it was meant to be a thing we were going to put out for the 1 year anniversary. Like, say, oh, we've got this thing. We always wanted to like try a cover, but never found the right one. What if we release a standalone single and we use that to push the album again? Get a 1 year sort of anniversary push with these, new T-shirts, new merch, all that sort of stuff. And that never came about. But again, you can't ever prove intent in these sorts of things, and they may well have had the intent to do so, but things change. The music industry changes so quickly. What's in and what's out, what's financially viable for them, and like I said at the start, I think some people have an impression that we're bigger than we are. We played a couple of shows. I was going to say this year. God, it's this new year. No, last year, where the people behind them were like, "Are you sure you're not too big for this?" And I was like, No, that's not how this works. We've got a name that is weirdly well known in small circles, and that's really good. I like having people who know us and respect us. But in terms of our actual, size, we pull pretty well in some cities and all that. But we're still trying to build ourselves up in other places. So we're happy to play gigs with good bands. No ego. We just want to get out there and prove ourselves still. And I think with Prosthetic, we never had the chance to prove ourselves, really. It's a shame, because I feel like they probably would have liked the new material better than they liked the previous material.
New material is excellent. I actually want to, the next thing I want to ask is, you've been doing this for years, haven't you? The three of you, including Tim, the guitar player, you've been playing together since 2005, is that right? Threnody.
I think me and Tim joined 2007, 6 or 7.
It was after Bloodstock, because I remember you were drunkenly in the pit of Bloodstock, and I was like, "Oh, I know Ed," and you were like listening. We were watching Arch Enemy, and you grabbed me drunkenly and went, "I want to play music like this," and I was not drunk, so I made a very strong mental note of like, "Oh, Ed's a good drummer. Let's steal Ed."
Because then it evolved into this band Bloodguard, and then you changed the name to Beyond Grace in 2014. So, what motivates you to continue writing? Let's loosely call it death metal throughout all these trends and over these years. I'm right in thinking it has stayed anchored towards that aesthetic, certainly, as a consistent theme.
It's definitely stayed under the wider bracket of death metal. I think so as Andy said, we kind of bonded, and he clearly decided to ask me to join the band during an Arch Enemy set. And I think certainly at that time, there was definitely a strong kind of melodeath vibe to Threnody as it was. And that's obviously kind of changed a lot over the years. I think we've got more kind of on the heavier side of even death metal, and then more kind of progressive, and particularly with the new EP, more kind of like dissonant, angular, like almost some deathcore influences. So I think the sound definitely has evolved over all those years. As to the motivation, I think we make music that we like, and that's what we want to do. And that's the motivation, I guess. It's just it
helps that we're all
creating.
Good friends. Like we hang out outside the band. We often use band practices as an excuse to okay, we'll practice on this day, and then whose place are we going to afterwards to have some drinks, have some food, to watch some films, to chat shit and put the world to rights. And because we've been together for so long, we're very slow writers. I think I've seen bands who churn out songs so much faster than we do, and it's just something we've come to accept, is that we're perfectionists and we're not trying to play any cliches or so there's a lot of just third thoughts, Terry Pratchett style, watching your second thoughts and watching your first thoughts. And we're better together. I think bouncing ideas off each other, we've developed over those years a really good creative partnership, and that's not something you want to lose. So as long as we're still driven to write and create together, we're still going to.
How important is it, because you're from Nottingham? When I speak, so I'm from Lancashire, northwest of England, but I live in Hertfordshire at the moment. in between London and Cambridge. And the scene here is very strong in Hertfordshire. A lot of sludge and death metal and studio black metal type music. But you speak to some of those bands and they know it's important to not get trapped in the scene. Clearly, you must be legends of the Nottingham circuit. How involved are you with that these days? And how has it changed since you started playing in 2000?
I know Andy has very strong opinions on this, so I'll let him.
It's not really a strong opinion. It's just we've always been outsiders in our local scene.
Have you?
Because yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't want to say that. So I always feel like in the national scene and wider, we're not a band who's really got much support because I think part of that is we're a bit personality-wise, we're a bit different, and sound-wise, we're harder to pigeonhole exactly. So although it's really good, like we get to play with different genres. Like some of our best shows are the hardcore shows we play up north, because they latch onto the meaning and message behind the music a lot. I think it does mean that with certain promoters, particularly if they don't know us that well, like, oh, you don't really fit this brutal death bill or this tech death bill exactly, so they're a bit reticent sometimes to put us on, and then sometimes the name is like, oh, I've heard the names, I'll give you a chance. Around here, again, we're on the periphery, but like there's been a lot of support. Some of the local practice places we use, Stuck on a Name is like a second home to us, and we practice there, every time we can, unless he's fully booked up, which he quite frequently is. We go to shows there. I record all my vocals there. We've got the Chameleon, which is one of our favorite venues, and it's shutting down this year after it was saved a few years back, and then it's going again. We do, and we have friends in the scene here. It's just that we do feel a little, speaking for all of us, a little still a bit on the outside of it all. But it's still nice. You'll go to shows and see people and like, I've not seen you for a while, and it's like, well, yeah, because I've been here and I've been all over the place, and none of us are actually from Nottingham originally. I grew up in Manchester till I was 18. Tim's from down south, and I can't remember where, so he's going to kill me for that. Kent,
just say London.
Yeah, it's all London down there. Ed currently lives down just outside London.
Where do you live, Ed?
High Barnet. So.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's on the border with Hertfordshire.
Yeah, very close to you.
Yeah, nice place. So let's look at some of the current bands from Nottingham that are quite big or have a name. You've got that black metal band, Anta, I think they're called. Do you know those guys?
Antra.
Is it Antra? Yeah. Have you played any shows with them?
We haven't, but I think we all know.
Yeah, and we've all played with previous bands I think they've been parts of, I think, in that sense. It's such a fertile scene. No spoilers, but lots of members of one band will be in other bands, other members of that doing different projects. Like Ed's in at least one other band I know of, which I'm not going to say any more about. But like Antra are from a couple of guys from different other groups, and we played with some of their groups, some of which are active, some of which aren't. And there's been a bunch of bands around here over the years who we've become friends with who've moved off in different directions, like the 500.
I was going to mention them. They're probably the one that Kerrang get behind, aren't they? To me, I don't really listen to metalcore. They're good though. I actually did enjoy that last album, 500.
We've known them since longer than I'd care to say. And we've seen them go through different iterations of like names and styles till they found themselves. And it's quite fun going on different parallel pathways. They've definitely gotten bigger than we are. There's no question of that. But it's been nice to sort of evolve alongside them and like both be looking for who we are. We still keep in touch with a couple of them every so often, just because we do have a history together.
What's that? You've got that band that signed to Church Road Records, that really dark black metal band, Underdark. They're from Nottingham. Have you heard them? Oh yeah, don't know them personally, but yeah, we've seen them play because they play around here every now and then. Yeah,
but they're still trying to. I mean, if they're smart, and I think they are, they're not playing like every weekend in Nottingham. So it's like last time I saw them was a couple of years back on the first album, before the first album, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, kind of going back to your earlier question about the Nottingham scene, is that the Nottingham scene's always been really strong for heavy music, but we've never quite been in the right place for where the scene is particularly strong in Nottingham. I feel like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, there was a lot of really good like metalcore and hardcore and kind of like stuff on the gentier side of things. And there's currently bands like the 500s who are kind of on that side of things, and like Underdark kind of black metal bands, you know. And then Nottingham's always had a good kind of doom and sludge kind of scene as well.
Yeah.
So it does have a really strong scene for metal, but we've never quite been in the right genre that's particularly strong at the right time, which I think is why we've never quite kind of, we're not stalwarts of the scene like you apparently thought we might be.
Yeah,
I mean, the plus side, that means there's no other band quite like us, but it also means there's no one for us to play with.
Like us.
That's not true. That's not true. We do play. We got a few with Blasphemer and Malediction and Drior coming up, who are all more on the more traditional, like, you know, OSDM style. But we'll just play some of our heavier, blastier stuff, and we'll fit in nicely with them. And we know, you know, a couple of those guys. We played Blasphemer years ago, and we know the Drior guys. You know, it's nice to every so often be reminded that although we don't fit in, that's not because people don't like us. It's just because we're just a little bit of an awkward puzzle piece, you know.
You've got Sheffield on your doorstep, haven't you? That's quite big for post metal, isn't it? There's some interesting stuff like that band Goza. Then you've got that blackened post metal band. Is it Baal?
Baal and
cool.
what's the other one?
Oh yeah, and the other one is I mean, obviously you've got like hardcore like Malevolence and Rough Justice and bands like that, but it's a good scene though, isn't it? And that is a neighbouring town.
Yeah, Sheffield. I think we've only played Sheffield like once. I don't think we've ever really broken Sheffield.
It's only across the bloody. God, how close is that? That's like Manchester.
It's weird.
To Bolton.
Yeah, it's weird. Like Manchester is great for us. I grew up there, so it's great to go back for me. But you know, over the years we've built up a good following over there. People want us back. Bristol and Brighton. Brighton's a long way away, but you always pull a good crowd in Brighton.
Brighton's strong, isn't it? Yeah.
Hi Brighton, we love you. Thanks. You know, Leicester's always good for us, and that's not far away at all. But yeah, there's odd towns. Sheffield, Birmingham's was up and down is better now, but it's that sort of like every so often you go, yeah, we've never cracked it in Sheffield. We never managed to break in there. It is what it is, I guess.
On your doorstep. So, let's talk about the EPs then, because this is what really excites me, and I won't mind going through each track on that, including the Peter Gabriel cover. So I think you almost answered this at the beginning when we were talking about Prosthetic Records. So I'll ask again, why have you chosen to do it as a 3-part installment? Why do you want to schedule it with this structure and then have the album come together at the end as one, perhaps vinyl or CD release?
I think part of it is just an acknowledgement that the industry is changing and has been changing, you know, drastically in the last few years. And I think we're all people who love albums and will, you know, put on an album, listen to an album, you know. But hence the CDs. But that's not the case for the vast majority of people who listen to music now. People, you know, stream maybe a couple songs, whatever. So I think we just wanted to mix things up a bit. It means we can put out music more frequently. As Andy's already said, we tend to take a long time to write stuff. So writing a full album is a long process for us. And I think particularly with having parted ways with Prosthetic, we didn't want to leave it a long time.
Yeah, I think I said to you, by the time we started talking about our next move, it had been several months because we've been knocked for 6 for it pretty hard, I think, and some more than others. But I think all of us were definitely feeling the sense of, are we not any good then? I mean, you know, clearly if they don't want us, maybe we're not worth it. You know, it does knock your sense of self-esteem, even though part of us was like, oh, we'll show them, we'll do our best stuff. In the back of your mind, there's like, yeah, but will we though? You know, you always think you want to be, or at least I want to be. I want us to be the best band, you know, the best band we could possibly be. But that might just be me thinking we're better than we are. And when that sort of doubt sets in of being knocked back like that, it did take us quite a few months to just get ourselves back together, I think, as a band. Yeah. And as I was saying, because we write so slowly, and I guess it's not a bad thing, and I think we take our time on this sort of stuff, it was a good idea to sort of keep our name out there a bit more frequently. You know, we could spread things out, and, you know, acknowledging that a lot of people do like to stream. We wanted to be upfront about it as well. Like when we did the announcement, we were like, look, we're going to release it, these 3 tracks and the cover. The cover's only streamable because obviously there's rights issues involved in all the covers. If you like them, just stream them. If you want to buy them and just free digital collection, feel free. But to let you know that, there'll be another one and a third one, and with the release of the third one, there'll be a physical. So if you want to wait, like, we understand. It's just, this is for, you want to like watch the development of the album go in piece by piece. You can listen in. You can throw in some cash to like fund it if you want to buy the tracks. Like, full transparency over what you're getting in the end is going to be, even to the point where we're about to record the second album. We're currently having like a back and forth. Okay, well, which should the first track be? Because it doesn't need to be the first track on the EP. It should be the track that comes out of the third track on the previous EP. There should be a sense of flow between all 3 of them, even though it's in 3 chapters. The chapters should flow into each other. And really, again, it was just, let's just try something different.
Have you already written part 2 and 3 then? Is that already done and mastered? Are you...
2 is fully written, not recorded. 3, I'll be talking to Tim this week. He's already got bare bones structures for 2, if not 3 of them. We've got to decide on the third cover, and I'm going to try and go see him probably next week and batter around some of the structures a bit. So I think, because with the first one, we released it in November, and then we had Christmas and all that, and New Year and everything like that. Thankfully, we'd already written most of 2, but we didn't get a chance to get together and really, put the cross the T's and dot the I's on it till relatively recently. With 3, because there's nothing major, I think, getting in the way, we'll be able to write the rest of 3 while we record number 2, basically. It won't be 100%, but there'll be parallel processes going on of practicing 2, getting it recorded, getting it all down, getting mixed and mastered. While we're doing that, we're not doing many live shows, so we're going to be forging onwards with getting 3. And we already know, or at least 2 of the songs, we've got the structure and direction kind of in our heads. It's just, you want to make it as good as possible. It's the last one, The first one was really good. We set a high bar. I want to make sure that 2 is just as good and 3 is just as good.
You have set a high bar, and I'll be one of those that buys the album when it's there. But just to be clear, the track order of EP 1, 2, and 3 isn't necessarily going to be the chronological order of the album at the end. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I think it should be, but it's been suggested that we could move things around. Don't know yet. We'll see when we get there. If we have a massive argument and we all fall out and the album never gets released and it becomes one of those like VH1 behind the music, the album that never was. That's not going to happen. Don't.
I just need to pick up on something. So Ed, you play in another band. So I'm interested in your denial to this question.
Oh, I play in a million bands, as we were saying before. This calls the video.
You probably answered it just by then. I was going to say, we don't know who the drummer is from that band, Sleep Token.
Ah, wow.
It could be you. The way that Andy said, I'm not going to say.
No, he's not the drummer. He's all of Sleep Token. This is just 5 times. Him and four holograms.
Yeah.
So you're going to deny it anyway if you are the drummer. I'm interested in your poker face answer to this.
Yeah, let's just say I'm in Sleep Token.
You shouldn't do that.
But I'm definitely not in Sleep Token. You can believe me.
Okay. I thought this could be him. This could, whatever number he is, he's been getting all these. I know you
he could do it
for a living, so I didn't think it was unreasonable. Let's go through the songs then. What I really liked about this track number 1. Do you know what I really enjoyed as a review of this album? Because it's so dissonant and heavy. It just gives me a license to just write using similes almost every sentence. It's so good it's very indulgent as a writer doing that. But when I listen to music, it's like, this is going to be fucking so much fun to review, to describe to the viewers. But with this, I want to be serious. The first track, it's like an angry song full of like belching, genty death metal riffs, really dissonant chords, absolutely off the charts, drumming. And it's talking obviously about book burning, isn't it? Which we always associate with Nazi Germany, don't we?
Yep.
And I just want to know what examples of censorship in the modern age inspired you to write this song? Unless I've misunderstood it.
No, uncountable ones, really. I mean, a lot of the pushes both... So I've always said that one of our issues in the UK is that we look to America and we copy the worst things they do. So you see a lot of the book bans in America, and for LGBT issues and for anything they to do with race, they're like they're terrified of that, and there's a lot of push for that. And I was watching it with this sort of eyes agape in horror that we've fallen, that one of the leading light of the Western world has fallen to this. And then I started seeing similar proposals over here of people who picked up, they've been on all the wrong corners of the internet, they picked up all the wrong conspiracy theories and decided that, oh, we should do that too. Yeah, we need to stop our kids learning stuff. Learning is bad. It was agog that we've forgotten the mistakes of the past and we're just repeating them all over again. Just horrifying, and it literally too many to name. And the defunding of our schools and the pushing of our kids into. So I'm not talking down vacational programs by any means, but in the case of we decided that this will not make you a productive member of society for given a value of productive. Let's be honest. So we're going to scrap that, and we don't want arts learning in our schools, and we don't want you to do this, and we don't want drama. We don't want anyone because drama and art can actually be used to criticize governments. So we should probably downplay that. And it felt very Machiavellian. It wasn't just a case of, oh, we're running out of funding, so we'll cut the theatre program. It was a case of, but I'm sick of people taking the piss out of us, and I'm sick of all these people writing books and people making plays and movies that teach people to think and question the government. And if we cut that off at the root, well, we can stop that. And it just felt really insidious, and I just got really, really pissed off at it and wrote The Burning Season.
That's interesting angle that you're looking at it. I would never think to even view it from that, what you just said there. So I definitely agree with you that we do seem to look at education through utility value, don't we, in this country? The STEM subjects. Of course, it's always going to be beneficial to study physics and chemistry and the hard sciences and engineering and mathematics. But you're right, I think we do downplay music, the arts. I mean, I studied history. If someone says to me, oh, why did you do that? Well, I wasn't thinking what job I'm going to get. I was thinking about the intellectual enrichment that would come with that. So that was never on my mind. So I don't think, oh, I paid this money to do a master's in history and it's not, I've not gone on in that sector to do anything with it. It's intellectual enrichment, isn't it? But you're saying, you're looking at it from the angle that it's Machiavellian and in the interests of those that rule us to be discouraging this because it can be used to criticize those in power.
Yeah, not knowledge is power, but also the ability to think critically, which they tend to downplay in education institutions more and more. So I'm the son of a teacher, and I know a lot about the testing process and that sort of stuff. And tests just really test your ability to answer tests. They don't. There are certain questions that will test your ability to critically think, and they teach you that, and that's important. But if you can downplay a generation's ability to think and criticize and question their sources, well, that has a huge knock-on effect for society at large. I've been accused of overthinking these things, but sometimes it does work out.
It is rare that we get this in death metal, isn't it? I mean, you do get a lot of abstract philosophy. Also in black metal, Friedrich Nietzsche is a big influence, and Machiavelli, to be fair, on that thinking. The more intellectual side. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with Gore Grind and those albums that are a bit more gruesome, but I think that does, when I reviewed your 2021 album, that did stand out for me. I just don't really hear this in death metal, so it's refreshing.
The first album was a bit more cerebral philosophy, if you know what I mean, in that sense.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of songs that touched on politics kind of obliquely, but then when we got to the next one, it was a case of that didn't fit the music so well, and I grew up mostly on my first alternative music was hardcore, which tends to be a lot more politically active in that sort of sense. So I was like, why don't I bring some of that in? And then Tim brings in a thrashy influence, and Ed's a prog and jazz drummer originally, so brings in sort of more creative parts than just blast beats, and it all comes together. And I think having those, there are bands like I'm a huge Heaven Shall Burn fan, and Misery Index are like the gold standard of political death metal kind of thing. But it is there are fewer bands who take this tack, I guess.
Yeah. Can I just ask musically about the drums, Ed?
Mm-hmm.
So how difficult will this be to replicate live? your drumming on this song?
We've played it live. The last couple of shows we've done, we've played
All three?
the 3 original tracks, at least, from the EP. Yeah, it's good.
No, by the way, no criticism in that question. It's
No,
just technical.
I assume I'm taking it as a compliment that they're difficult.
You can't even have a pint, can you? Really, surely, before you go.
I don't drink when I'm playing with this band. We
never drink before a show, Ed. Never.
Exactly.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah. It definitely.
Well, you've got to concentrate because you're playing bass as well, Andy.
Well, I usually have one drink.
Yeah. Do you know when you watch Slayer, you do wonder Tom Araya when you're watching Slayer? Sometimes you're like, doesn't seem to be really fretting much there.
No, Blood Red Throne. So we've done a bunch of shows over the years with Blood Red Throne. They're not back for a while, but
good band, by the way.
Oh yeah, and the drunkest band I have ever seen, and they don't miss a note. What? I think they clearly must practice. I assume they practice drunk, so it's kind of state dependent. So they can't play sober. They have to get to a certain level of drunk, and that's how they remember how to play. It's mind blowing. They get out of the van one morning and they're drinking tequila straight, and they carry on drinking through to the show. And we're sat there practicing, having a beer, going, if I drank that much, I mean, I can drink, but if I drank that much, I mean, I'd probably die on stage. I'd probably literally just collapse, and it would be a great story for everyone but me.
Yeah, they're animals, that band on record. Imperial Congregation, the last album. I fucking love that record.
New one's good. Just came out.
Second album on the EP, Buyer's Remorse. To me, this was one where I just went crazy with the similes. And even today, I've described it, when I re-listened to it, it's like being splashed across the face with a malaria-infested puddle of water. But yet the production's really sharp. No, it is. It's really rough. And no, it's not rough. It's deliberately dirty, isn't it? It's ugly music. But what's the song about, Buyer's Remorse? Because I haven't actually looked at the lyrics for this song.
Well, I mean, the primary influence, I'm going to completely alienate half our potential audience here, was Brexit, I think. But at a wider extent, it's people voting against their own interests, and also it's the people who push certain agendas, then complaining that they got what they asked for, was the whole idea. Literally, you pushed and pushed for this, and then things went horribly wrong, which we all told you it was going to do. And now you have the gall, the sheer hypocrisy of claiming to be the victim in all of this. How dare you? I mean, I was not happy when I was writing that song. Even though it's got our big clean chorus, it has. There's a nasty twist, I think, to the clean chorus in that sense. Like, it's really well done. Tim does all the singing. Tim's got a great singing voice. But lyrically, it's definitely quite an unforgiving song, even for all that.
Ed, are you pushing the prog elements to this music?
As Andy said, like, when we first met, I was playing in a prog band at the time, and I've always enjoyed like odd time signatures and fun stuff like that. So I definitely am very keen on that stuff. Tim, guitarist, has historically written most of the like riffs in our stuff. So he obviously enjoys the kind of technically demanding stuff as well. So he's very much tries, like, really likes to try things out with kind of odd time signatures. And then I feel like when it comes to writing the band, I'm very much a reactive person. I don't come in with a lot of completely fresh ideas, but Tim will, write a riff or something. I'll be like, right, okay, I know what's happening with this. And then sometimes that will end up going in weird polyrhythms and like, tweaking how the structure of the guitar riff works so that I can do something stupid with drums over the top of it. So that, it's definitely a part of the band I really enjoy. And and I mean, Chris, the other guitarist as well, comes from a prog background. So we all, and Andy will tell you he grew up listening to his dad's prog records. So we've all got that influence in there for sure. It just, for me, it just makes it more interesting music, both to write and to play.
It's probably held us back a little bit because we don't write for an audience. Like, there's very rarely a case of going, well, where should the hook go? Like, we know bands who have taken advice directly from like labels and PR and producers to say, no, you need to be making a song that does exactly this and hits exactly these milestones because that will get you this many plays. And that's one way of doing it, you know. And I think you can do that very well. You know, as long as you're a good band, you can get away with, I think, almost anything if you mean it and you're good and you've got the capacity to deliver. But because we're not a huge band and no one's ever really pushing us to do that, we do sort of. You don't want to get self-indulgent. Like, there's a lot of like staying in the back going, okay, what can we cut? Where can we kill our darlings to make this just a better song, a tighter song? But, you know, Tim and Chris write what they want to play. They want to be able to enjoy playing it. You know, I'm a big picture kind of guy. I do a lot of the sort of structuring. When Tim and Chris have done a lot of the like pushing towards like maybe 70%, I'll probably step in and go, oh, could we do this many times? I think we'll have better flow for the vocals, or like, oh, I think actually that would make a better chorus. So let's like switch some parts around. And then Ed will go, oh, I've got this idea for a drum beat, and that will like change the feel of it. And we call it the ripple effect. We all kind of stick our oars in, and every so often you'll change something, which means you have to change the thing next to it, you change the thing next to it, and then suddenly, you know, it's an entirely different song from where you started.
Yeah. I can hear that creeping in, the prog. By the way, certainly at Scream Blast Repeat, I think I've just overdosed on death metal over the last year, to the point where I just keep hearing bolt thrower clones now. And when I heard your EP, I was like, finally, an album I can get back. Sorry, a record that's death metal that I can get back into it, because I do like progressive death metal and progressive black metal. That's where a lot of our focus goes now, you know, rather than the bolt thrower clones or the bands that rip off Suffocation. So yeah, I just hope that continues this trajectory you're on. It's not a massive injection, but you can hear certainly that end there. And when we get to Misinfodemic, great title, I think that's very clear what that's about. And I think I called it a cynical song title in my review.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't I? But
I think I had a song title like well before the song was written. I'm always writing down quotes from books or TV shows or movies and lines I hear, and sometimes like things I mishear or come up with in a dream, or just making little notes. Misinfodemic was a song title that was like, we have lots of hilarious working song titles. That one didn't get a working song title. I was like, no, this is the title. Actually, I think it was called Lizard Thoughts for about 5 minutes till I heard the chorus and went, oh no, I've got a title list. That's the chorus. That's the title. Was sorted. But yeah, they're all kind of cynical songs on the first EP. Actually, they're all kind of cynical songs on the second EP as well. But it's going to be quite a cynical album, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's a service. You've got something to say, haven't you? You're not afraid to write songs about Brexit. You're not bothered if it alienates people. That's your right to do that. They're your political convictions, aren't they? And
the next one has a song about, strictly speaking, is about cannibalism, but it's literally about the way we will turn on each other at the drop of a hat and eat each other to survive. A song about police brutality, which I'm really happy with. So a really, really fast one, a really chunky mid-paced one with a couple of blasty moments, and then a really, really proggy one about toxic masculinity and isolation. That I think is going to be interesting how that one's taken. I think on the next record, we've swung for the fences a bit on that one. But yeah, they're all topics I feel like I have something to say about, rather than just like the one that was about cannibalism, stuff like that. That's the metaphor in it. I can't remember what it was now. I'd written an entire set of lyrics for it, and we got to the point where we were trying to demo it, and I messaged the guys and went, I've tried to demo this tonight. I'm not feeling this. I'm scrapping the entire song. And I went back to this one book that I've been meaning to take as inspiration for a while, reread it, made some notes, twisted some lines from it, and I'm so much happier with it. But I completely Tender is the Flesh by Baz Tariqa.
Oh, okay.
It's good. Again, it's a very dark book, but I know I've actually had quite a few bands who swear by it. So,
because you know about the metaphor of cannibalism on the right of political thought, that's used quite cynically, hasn't it? That democracy is
leopards eating faces,
self-interested, cynical, competing groups, and it'll cannibalize itself, and eventually you'll need authoritarian rule to restore order. And then what metaphor? Clearly, you're not a right wing band. So what metaphor? I know the song's not out yet, so you might not want to give too much away. What metaphorical angle are you looking at that from?
It's the same angle I cover all of them. What the forces of capitalism essentially make us do to survive.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
the shame of, you always want to stand up for your morals, you want to stand up for your ideals, but you've got to survive day to day, and you compromise, and you'll throw each other to the wolves, if pushed to that. I do actually believe that human beings in general have a great capacity for compassion and for good, but the album is about confronting the dark sides of our natures and the dark side of politics and the dark sides of the systems we've set up, which force you to do that. Like I said, we were talking about labels and stuff like that earlier. They exist in a capitalist world. They've got to make money or they go under. So while they'd love to invest in every band like us, realistically they can't. It all comes down to this same thing. Really, it's the root of all evil.
Which is the song on your last album that's reversing? Like in black metal, you've got that Nietzschean almost like elitism, like the strong will always overpower the weak. You actually have a song, don't you, on the last album that's giving voice to those who are treated as the weak, and that we should treat them with grace and respect rather than
Una non grata.
Yeah, exactly. That's the song, isn't it? Yeah.
that was also the song I was going to mention earlier. That was the Ripple Effect. That was originally like a 3-minute tech death song, and then we wrote another riff for it and went, that's really good, let's make more of that. And then we put that in as the chorus and went, well, the pre-chorus doesn't fit anymore, so we'll change that riff. Then we'll change the riff before it because it's got to fit. Now it's got to be longer, and then it was a 6-minute prog death song by the end of it. But I think there's one riff in that song that was in the original now, like unchanged. The rest is unrecognizable. That's the one where I quote Pastor Niemoller about, first they came for, and there's some other stuff about, democracy dying in darkness, which is I think the New York Times slogan and sort of stuff. Again, it's a lot of, like a magpie, I've picked and chosen all these bits and pieces from political thought and essays and books and like that, and tried to make a message out of it, to synthesize it all together. It's definitely a call for compassion, that one, even though again it's an angry fucking song.
Yeah. And then on this EP, you've done this Peter Gabriel cover, haven't you? The 1977 song. What's it called? Here Comes the Flood.
Yeah.
Why did you decide on that song? Because I appreciate it's difficult to find a song you all like and that you think you can do justice to. I
think we've been talking about the idea of doing a cover for ages, but I think it took us a long time to decide on one. And I think one thing we talked about was how metal covers tend to fall into one of two categories. Either a metal band covers a metal song and it's basically just the same song, but maybe the double kicks are faster or the production's heavier or whatever, but
that is true.
They don't, you know what I mean? They don't do anything.
We've got two of those in proto form. I think we started on a Nevermore and a Judas Priest.
Yeah.
That we got partway through and went, and then I think Blood Red Throne put out, I think a version of Leather Rebel on one of their songs. And I went, oh, they've just done what we were going to do to Between the Hammer and the Anvil, which we might go back to one day because I love that song. I'd love to heavy it up even further. It did feel a bit, like Ed said, we were following in the footsteps of how it should be done.
Yeah. Or the other thing that the bands do is like they'll cover a pop song, but it's kind of like a bit of a novelty thing.
Yeah.
And again, all they're really doing is playing the song with metal production. They're not.
And the lyrics don't always fit either. That's important for me. I always feel it's quite cheesy when you're screaming certain lyrics because they weren't designed to be screamed and sound a bit, and they just don't fit. There are certain words. I've always said, like I said last time we were together, Ed, the word smell. That's not a metal word. I've heard in a couple of songs bands growling or screaming that. It just doesn't work.
You're right.
There's a lot, when you cover a pop song, it just feels like you're just adding distortion to the exact same structure. It's just a pop structure, and you're just screaming often in the same rhythm as well as delivered. So it's just a bad Xerox of what was already exist, and we didn't want to do that. And was it Tim who came up with it, Ed?
Yeah, I think it was Tim's suggestion. He was going on a bit of a Peter Gabriel kick a couple of years ago and was like, the lyrics in this song are pretty epic, and like it'd be fun to do something with this. So yeah, I think we all got on board with the idea of doing a song that you wouldn't expect, but isn't just doing a cheesy pop cover or something silly like that, but actually turning it into our own thing, like making it's a cover, but it sounds like us. It doesn't sound like the original. It doesn't sound like, as Andy says, a bad Xerox of a pop song. It sounds like us, but it's someone else's song. So
yeah, I always think what you've just described there. One of the best covers where the band making their own Roxy Music, when they covered that John Lennon song, "Jealous Guy." I actually, because I heard that first, I thought that they'd written that song. Like with that sex, but I'm just a jealous guy. It's an amazing interpretation. In metal, the first time I came across what you just described as number one, ironically, was actually Celtic Frost. On their 1990 album, they covered Heroes by Bowie and did this really amazing proto groove metal riff, but it still doesn't work. It's like Sanji Warrior growling, for fuck's sake. So it's never going to work. But that's the first time I'd come across what you've just described there.
One that sticks out for me as as a really good benchmark is an Anthrax cover of The Man at CNA by the Specials.
Oh, okay.
Because that's not two people you put together, but it's an Anthrax, so it sounds like an Anthrax. It's not.
Yeah, evil then.
Yeah, evil as fuck, but it's got the groove that makes it recognizably the Special song, but it sounds like an Anthrax. So that was one where I was like, if we can do something that kind of captures that elements of it, then I'll be happy. So I think it can.
Thematically, that one as well. It's about the nuclear war paranoia, so it fits their aesthetic like absolutely perfectly.
Yeah.
So do you know EP 2 and 3 are each track number 4 and those going to be a cover? Are you going to continue that structure?
Yep.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Second cover is already written. I'm just batting around. I think that one of the important things is, so I'm not going to spoil what it is, but all 3 covers, because we've got a proto idea what number 3 is going to be, have all been they're recognizable. They're relatively minimalist. Like, we didn't want to have to take it, or if someone's got a really signature guitar riff, it's like, well, all we're going to do is add distortion to that, and that's not what we want to do. We've chosen songs that have certain themes and certain motifs that we can twist and change into a metal song, rather just add a bit of metal on top of it. And one of the things that I'm doing we did in Here Comes the Flood, at least when the harsh vocals come in, I don't actually copy any of the phrasing of the original. And in this new one, we've tried to shy away from, again, doing the exact same patterns or same lyrics and every sort of stuff, but we've twisted it up, and I'm just working on now, how am I going to deliver this? How do I want it to make it sound like I want it to sound like I might have originally written these lines, not I'm just trying to make them fit while I'm screaming them, which I think is always a bit half-assed.
I know you're not allowed to say which song. Can you tell me how near I am if I give 3 guesses?
Yeah, definitely.
Björk, Army of Me, potentially?
No, it's been done quite a few times, and done really well, actually.
Oh, okay. It's because of that bass riff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Portishead, perhaps? Because you said minimalist.
Oh, that would be a good one.
So I'm not in the ballpark. I'm going to go with someone who's a male vocalist. I reckon you've gone for a Tom Waits song.
Also a really good shout.
It would be a good shout. A friend of mine, band Enderlith from Norway, did a really good cover of Earth Dies Screaming by him. That's fits the thematic. No, I will say we're staying all in the sort of 70s, I think possibly 60s, one of them, prog area, I think, aren't we?
So far, yeah.
Cool.
So we've not finalised the one for the 3rd EP yet, but yeah. The one for EP2 is not a million miles away from Peter Gabriel one. But
okay.
That's all.
I'll look forward to it then, the surprise when it's on there. So final question. I think you might have answered parts of this as well. So you like to invest in videos, don't you? My question was going to be, let's imagine the album comes out at the end of 2024, this year. What plans, where would you spend your money to promote this album to make sure it stays within the attention span of the metal underground?
That's a very good question.
We are working with Hold Tight, who are a big deal. I mean, again, this is no slight on them because they've been fantastic. We're definitely the smallest fish in their particularly big pond, but they've been fantastic and really supportive. So we're working with them all the way through to the end of the album cycle. Like they actually, when we talked to them, they were like, okay, normally we do bigger things than this, but we're really intrigued by the whole EP angle, and we'd like to be involved in promoting it that way. We'll be shooting another video. I mean, Ed, I'm trying to push for another video maybe end of next month if I can find the venue.
Yeah.
For the single from the second EP. And we'll probably do, to be honest, I think we'll probably do a video for the third EP as well. They're all
part of the reason for choosing the EP, the 3 EP model, is that we're not trying to have like one particular point where we're promoting. We're kind of promoting all the way through.
Yeah, you can spread it out.
Yeah, exactly. Because as I say, we wanted to acknowledge the fact that not everyone is particularly into the album format these days, and in the way the industry works, it can be really beneficial to have just a constant stream of something, going on all the time rather than investing all in one big lump. So we've got stuff in the pipeline still for EP1, which
it also means we can do stuff. Like we're doing the 3 covers are going to interconnect. So when you get the CD, or if we're very lucky, a vinyl, we'll see about that. You'll be able to see the 3 panels all together. And that was something I thought was a cool opportunity to take here, to actually, each of the 3 panels is going to have a central figure who's going to tie into at least one of the songs. With Gary Ronaldson, Byte Radius Designs, who is a long-time old friend of mine, we never had a chance to work with over the years, because he is, he's Napalm Death's go-to guy, and Misery Index's go-to guy, and Benighted, and a bunch of very big, very famous bands. And we finally got a chance to work on this, and he's already. I need to talk to him about EP2. I'll probably message him after this, actually.
Yeah.
Like he did the first one, the Herald T-shirt, when the Herald design for the first EP, and then there's going to be another figure on that side, and another figure on that side. So when you finally get to it, these 3 EPs should make a really nice album. We want all 9 tracks to flow. We want the 3 pieces of the artwork to flow together, to fit together, to represent it. We want the videos we do to add to the album. Add a visual aspect to a performance aspect, and add some more stuff maybe we couldn't get into the artwork. It's important to have it all tied together, because I think if we're not creatively fulfilled, we're not going to keep doing this.
Yeah, it's good, because you don't want to be trapped in that cycle. Album, and then 3 years, go back to our lives. We'll tour every year in the summer, in between day jobs, and then go back. So you're actively making sure you're not in that comfort zone, aren't you? You're trying something different.
Yeah.
That definitely makes sense to me. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you very much for joining us on the channel. I'll be honest, I would like to continue this for another hour, because I've learned so much about certainly the industry, but I know clearly, like you said,
one band's experience of the industry. So
true. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've spoken to lots of other bands who have worked with lots of labels, because I write for No Clean Singing, and I help out with Northwest Terrorfest in America. I used to write for Terrorizer for a bit. I know a lot of bands, a lot of people in the industry.
You used to write for Terrorizer? Sorry.
I did about 2 years there doing reviews and occasional interviews and cover stories. It was a good time.
Yeah.
My last ever cover story never got published. I just interviewed Demonaz, who is immortal now, and then the magazine folded before it got published, and I was gutted. It was a great interview. But they've all spoken. We've spoken to them about our experience with prosthetic, and they basically said, it's kind of normal. There's good and there's bad, and you're always talking with people as well. So if they're having a bad day, when they have to send you an email to say we're not working with you, it's going to come out badly. If they're having a good day, maybe they'll reconsider that. Relationships are what they are, and just because it's an industry, you think it's going to work. A label will do this for you, and you'll get exactly this, and then so on and so forth. There's so many different things that can come out and cause problems, ruin your relationship, or just make it so it wasn't, in our case, so it wasn't viable anymore. It's really from either direction. So I've had some worse stories. I know of some labels out there who have been 10 times worse. So we were hurt, but we've learned from it and moved on, and hopefully maybe some of the stuff we've learned can help other people. Like Prosthetic just signed Hand of Kaliak, is that the name? I think it is.
I know that band. Scottish, like folk black metal.
Black Melodeath thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope it goes well for them, because just because it didn't work out for us doesn't mean it's not going to work out for someone else. You just got to find the right person to be with in that sense. Like I said, it's a relationship. You don't always end up with the person you're dating at the time. But one question before we go: is that a Must Kill T-shirt?
It is, yeah.
We played with them last year. Good band.
Yeah, great band, aren't they? What was the show? Was it the Leicester one?
No, that was Cranium, wasn't it? Ed? Was that the Cranium show?
In Bristol.
In Bristol, yeah.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun night. Yeah.
You said, tell you what will help, because you've got Hold Tight PR. That's James Monteith of Tesseract, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great band, one of my all-time favourites. And it's so hard. If you're a band, they will not just accept anyone. So that's almost like as prestigious as being signed now. If you get them working.
Yeah.
I think that's a vote of you said, after what happened with Prosthetic Records, maybe there is some self-doubt. I think that should have been the first sign. No. If Hold Tight PR, who've just expanded their operations into Europe yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And Jessica, I know her. She's Season of Mist. She was the Season of Mist main contact. So
that's why I knew the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
I write for No Clean Singing. I've written for No Clean Singing for I think it's over a decade now. I think this might be.
Yeah, she was emailed you the band, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'll know the name from.
Yeah. So yeah, but no, absolutely fantastic. I'd like to interview you when the album's out. We'll do a track by track analysis. We'll do that for Screen Blast Repeat on our Behind the Album series on our YouTube channel. So thanks so much for joining us. I just want to say to our viewers, go and listen to this new EP. Welcome to the New Dark Ages Part 1. Go and listen to the 2021 album Kingdom Undone. I think that's a fascinating death metal record that actually, you mentioned the word zeitgeist. Lyrically, you really are engaged with the zeitgeist on that album. So yeah, I think that would be interesting just for that alone. Even if
that album was less explicit. Chris nudged me at one point when we were in the middle of recording. He was like, "Is this about XYZ?" And I went, "It wasn't meant to be, but yeah, I think it actually is. Like it unconsciously." Whereas this one, I feel like this one, this EP, these EPs, I know a bit more what I'm actually writing about. Whereas in that one, I was just getting out. I was purging a lot of what I was feeling, and then people going, "Oh, is this about X? Is this about Y?" So I was like, "Yeah, it is." At the time I was writing it, I didn't know that. I just had to get this out. Whereas this time around, like I said, I dumped a whole song recently because it wasn't working. And I knew what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more focused, this one.
So when can we expect installment number 2 then? I think we should end with that in mind.
Well, we don't have a date confirmed yet, but we haven't recorded it yet. So, but the plan is before the summer.
That's when you're recording it. So
we're recording it really soon.
Oh, so you're saying it hopefully could be out before the summer?
Yeah.
The aim, which we can't tie ourselves into, is to have that in say late April, early May, something like that, and then have the third one sort of September-ish, I think, something like that. Again, all subject to change because we don't know what's going to happen. Things could go horribly wrong or whatever. But we want, if we can, we won't be able to experience the whole thing front to back by the end of the year because I think it's important. Although Chris has already started writing stuff for the next release after that, so might just dive straight back into the studio.
Yeah, you mentioned that. He's already on the next album.
Because I think we don't play many live shows. We'd love to play more. Like we had a couple of years where we played tons. We got to tour with Our Penance, Monarch Death Cult, and Blood Red Throne, and a bunch of others. We've done Cryptopsy show. I mean, that was all within the space of span of 2 years. Then COVID happened and killed the entire music industry for a while. And since then, we've kind of struggled a little bit because our reputation, I think, is bigger in certain places than it is in others. So it's kind of been hard to be consistent. So that's why we've thrown ourselves into the writing, because we love the writing and recording process. And we love to play more live. But if it comes down to creation, or because you can't practice to get yourself really tight for live while you're practicing to get really tight for recording, because I think they're two different things. And we enjoy the creative process so much, we kind of prioritize that a lot.
Yeah, I understand. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it on the show, and I will speak to you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
When the album comes out. Cheers.
See you then.
Thank you very much.